The landscape of commercial digital media has completely shifted. We're no longer stuck in those tedious, human-in-the-loop editing workflows where you're spending hours manually dragging clips onto a timeline. Instead, we've entered an era driven by zero-shot, fully autonomous architectures. We're talking about systems that synthesize a continuous, non-stop cycle of content built perfectly for algorithmic feeds. What used to be hours of manual asset assembly is now just minutes of autonomous orchestration.
Right at the center of this massive transition is an open source project called MoneyPrinterTurbo. And yeah, despite the catchy name, this isn't some gimmick. It's a highly resilient, local-first API orchestration pipeline that flips traditional video editing completely on its head.
Think about how video editing has worked for decades. You start with a folder full of clips and try to write a script to match what you filmed. This system completely reverses that. It operates purely on a script-driven paradigm. The words you feed it dictate absolutely everything that follows.
Because it acts as a decoupled orchestration layer, rather than a rigid monolithic model or some incredibly expensive cloud video SaaS, this system abstracts away a massive amount of friction. Behind the scenes, it's natively handling all that complex prompt formatting, dodging dynamic API rate limits, and wrestling with arcane FFmpeg syntax so you don't have to. It gives you incredible customization, lets you leverage your own local hardware to keep costs near zero, and relies on real, high-quality stock assets instead of weird, hallucinated AI video generation. To actually pull off this level of efficiency, the architecture processes information through a strict, fully automated assembly line. Every single step automatically triggers the next, without you ever needing to lift a finger. The moment you input a topic, this relentless 5-step sequence kicks off. First, the system instantly writes your script. Second, and this is a real game changer, it extracts precise semantic search keywords based on the actual meaning of your text. Third, it fires those keywords out to automatically source matching stock footage. Fourth, it synthesizes a broadcast-quality audio track. And finally, it flawlessly composites the subtitles, voice, and footage into a crisp, high-definition MP4. It is literally a perfect, uninterrupted manufacturing process.
Now, what makes this whole engine run is how it chains together specialized, interchangeable APIs and local models. This specific design choice is exactly what guarantees both data privacy and cost efficiency. If one piece of your pipeline breaks, or maybe a certain API gets a bit too pricey, it's no big deal. You just swap it out for another and keep right on generating.
This architecture is just incredibly modular. You can run the script generation completely privately on your own machine using a Llama. You can pull stunning, royalty-free clips straight from Pexels or Pixabay. You can synthesize or even clone custom voices locally for free using Chatterdocs TTS. And to top it off, you get perfectly synchronized word-by-word subtitles by running Whisper right there on your desktop. The level of control you have over all these individual pieces is pretty much unprecedented.
So how does this autonomous factory actually distill complex data-heavy topics into engaging visual content? Let's look at a practical example. We'll feed the system a really dense historical timeline covering the origins of Bitcoin. We just drop in milestones like the 1993 Cypherpunk Manifesto, Satoshi's 2008 white paper, and Bitcoin reaching dollar parity in 2011. The AI instantly takes these dense historical facts and weaves them into a seamless, flowing narrative script. At the exact same time, it's extracting core concepts like cryptography and digital parity and pulling perfectly matched footage to represent those highly abstract ideas on screen. Honestly, what would normally take a dedicated researcher and an editor an entire afternoon is handled and composited flawlessly in just minutes.
But let's be real for a second. Getting this production-ready local pipeline running smoothly on your own machine isn't exactly just plug and play. You have to strictly adhere to some very specific software dependencies if you want to make sure your final render doesn't just instantly crash.
These requirements are exact, and they absolutely matter. For instance, Python version 3.11 is explicitly required. If you try to jump ahead to version 3.12, it's going to completely break the underlying audio processors. On top of that, installing the ImageMagick static binary, along with its C++ development headers, is completely non-negotiable. Without those specific binaries properly in place, the framework will just flat out fail to generate and overlay your dynamic subtitles.
And beyond those basic dependencies, scaling any AI tool really demands rigid, defensive data validation. Think about it.
Because this software handles external media file paths, there's a real risk that attackers could pass maliciously crafted paths to overwrite critical system files. To counter that threat, the open source maintainers implemented robust cryptographic level sanitation for all incoming media. It preemptively neutralizes remote code execution vectors, which means you can scale the system securely without leaving your local network exposed. But here is perhaps the absolute most important takeaway if you're actually going to use this technology in a production environment. Even if you have perfect technical execution and bulletproof security, operational realities dictate a really hard truth. This software automates assembly. It doesn't automate legal judgment.
While the MoneyPrinterTurbo codebase itself is MIT licensed and totally free to use, the stock footage retrieved by its APIs is still bound by its own set of rules. Keep in mind, free footage isn't automatically cleared for every single commercial use case. Before you go ahead and publish a single frame, you absolutely must manually verify the commercial licensing and handle any specific attribution requirements for the assets you're pulling from platforms like Pexels or Pixabay. The reality of AI workflows today is pretty clear. The system handles the assembly, but you still have to supply the judgment. The true power of this technology isn't that it's going to replace you, it's that it compresses all those repetitive mechanical steps of video editing into just minutes. It frees up your valuable time and mental energy so you can actually focus on high-level strategy, factual verification, and the creative direction of your content. As content generation continues getting cheaper and faster, the primary bottleneck in media creation has totally shifted. The challenge isn't figuring out how to make the content anymore. It's about how to select, verify, and publish it responsibly. You now have the exact tools needed to run an autonomous content factory right from your desktop. So the only question left is, how are you going to direct yours?